Welcome, everyone. We appreciate your being here tonight. I'll ask the clerk to call the meeting and call the roll.
Roll call. Maddox.
Here.
Kane.
Here.
Markley.
Here.
Walters.
Here.
Philbrook.
Here.
Walker.
Here.
Townsend.
Here.
McKiernan.
Here.
Mugia.
Here.
Holland.
Here. Thank you very much. This evening, the invocation is being given by Reverend Gene Flannery. Please stand for the prayer and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good evening, Mayor and everyone. Let's pray, and again, if you'll allow me, I'll pray in Spanish, the language of a third of our families here that live in our community. Oh Padre Celestial, en esta tarde venimos delante de ti, pedimos bendiciones sobre los líderes de esta ciudad, a fin de que tengamos paz entre nosotros. Les dan la sabiduría y gracia y valor para hacer las buenas leyes, y que nosotros podemos proveer todas las necesidades del pueblo de esta ciudad. Y pedimos todo esto y confiar en tu gracia, en el nombre de nuestro Señor Jesucristo, en quien reina y para siempre, en el nombre de Jesús. Amén. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Flannery, for being here tonight. Ms. Cobbins, are there any revisions to tonight's agenda?
There are no revisions to the agenda.
Thank you. That brings us to item number 1 on the mayor's agenda. It's a proclamation proclaiming the month of April as Duchesne Clinic Health and Hope Month. I would invite the Duchesne Clinic representatives to please come forward to the podium as the clerk reads the proclamation.
The proclamation reads, whereas on the 25th anniversary of the opening of the Duchesne Clinic in April 1989, we acknowledge the contribution the clinic has made to the residents of Wyandotte County. Founded on the belief that health care is a basic human right, the clinic provides services to indigent patients regardless of their religious affiliation, with an emphasis on the values of compassion, respect of personal dignity, and a sensitivity to human suffering. And whereas since 1989, Duchesne Clinic has been the site of more than 213,913 patient visits, providing a medical home to thousands of residents who otherwise would have gone without access to medical care. And whereas in 2014, there were 41,021 patients in Wyandotte County without health care insurance. The services provided by Duchesne Clinic remain vital to the health of our community. And whereas we ask that all citizens consider honoring Duchesne Clinic for providing 25 years of service to Wyandotte County and recognize Duchesne Clinic for the significant impact it has made and continues to make in the health care as a critical part of our health care team. Now therefore, I, Mark R. Holland, Mayor CEO of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2014 as Duchesne Clinic Health and Hope Month.
I'm Amy Falk, the Executive Director, and I would just like to thank you all for your 25 years of support. Duchesne Clinic is truly a community effort, and without each and every one of you, we would not have had the privilege of serving this community. And I also invite you all to our upcoming events as we honor our partnership with the fire and EMS departments on April 26th. So thank you very much.
All right, that brings us to the second item on the mayor's agenda, which is a resolution of support for the Dot Trot.
Hi, we're asking for adoption of the resolution in support of the Dot Trot.
Ma'am, may you please state your name and address for the record?
Jennifer Myers, Legal Department.
Thank you.
The Dot Trot is going to be a run. It's sponsored by the SAFE Fund, which is a Surviving Spouse and Family Endowment Fund. This is a fund that provides immediate and long-term financial support for surviving spouses and dependents of public safety officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty. This is going to be also sponsored by the Unified Government Public Safety, so the fire department, the police department, and the sheriff's department are helping to put this on. So this is to honor those public safety officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty.
That's terrific. I also would just like to say it's also an excellent tie-in to Healthy Communities, whether you're trotting or running or walking. This is a way to both make a healthy decision as well as a way to support our public safety personnel. So I think this is a great opportunity for our community. We would accept a motion for a resolution.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Roll call.
Roll call, Maddox.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Walker. Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion passed.
All right, that brings us now to our consent agenda. I will ask now, does any member of the commission, staff, or citizen in attendance tonight wish to set aside an item on tonight's consent agenda? You would need to step forward at this time and state your name and address for the record and ask that that item be set aside. If an item is not set aside, all items on the consent agenda will be voted on by one vote.
Move for approval. Second.
Let the record show I see no one moving forward to set an item aside. The motion and second are before us. Roll call.
Roll call, Maddox.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Walker. Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion passed.
Thank you. That now brings us, excuse me one moment, now brings us to our standing committee agenda. We have item number 1 before that is our item requesting disbursement of alcohol and drug funds to Mirror Inc. This item was fast-tracked from April 7th Neighborhood and Community Development Standing Committee. It comes with a unanimous vote of approval. That was
Move to approve.
chaired by Commissioner McKiernan, who just made the motion to approve. I see no one wishing to speak on the item. Roll call.
Roll call, Maddox.
Aye.
Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Walker. Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
The vote is 9-0. That motion passed.
Thank you. That brings us to the next item on our agenda, the presentation of Emergency Management 101. So we will turn it over to Mr. Bach. I'd ask you to please set the stage for this presentation.
Thank you, Mayor, Commission. In continuation of our educational series, I guess, on departments, the 101s that we have, tonight I've asked our Interim Director of Emergency Management, Mike Boffman, to come forward and really give maybe a two-part presentation tonight. The first part about the operations of emergency management, what takes place in that department, and then also a little bit additional information on the storm season. And as we come into this time of year, it's always one where we have more heightened awareness of what's going on, warnings and such that are out there, and Mike will also address that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Bachman.
Mayor, Commissioner, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mike Bachman. I'm with Emergency Management. Thought I had to get that on record, even though Mr. Bach had already introduced me. And let me step through just a few steps. I have a very short presentation. The mission of emergency management is to develop, coordinate, and promote, as you see on the screen there, resources, capabilities necessary for effective response and recovery to any disaster or other emergency situation in Wyandotte County. That's a fairly large charter just by itself. We have an emergency operations plan, which is reviewed and submitted for approval. The commission has adopted this. I believe the last update was 2012. And again, the purpose of our plan is to provide a basic outline for people to accomplish the job that we have to accomplish our charter. protect and prevent injuries and so on. I have to give the obligatory 4 phases of emergency management, which seems to be in every presentation that anybody ever does about emergency management. Prepare, respond, recover, and mitigation. Everybody uses that word mitigation, which basically means how can we make this not happen again? And what can we do? Small things, large things, for which there are sometimes funding capabilities from the federal government that can help us prevent some things from happening. So moving on into storm season. Storm season is traditionally for this part of the country, March through May. The radar there on the screen that you see is the radar that was just on 4-3 about 1:30 in the morning. You can see that most of it had passed us. This is a display that we use, and there was nothing developing behind it. However, the watch that went on that night went on until 5 a.m. So a good number of people, myself included, gave it up about 1:30, 2 o'clock, and continued to monitor away from the Emergency Operations Center and operated from my home in order to do that. One of the tools that we have is called the National Weather Service chat line. I don't have up the log from that particular night, but on the chat line, the emergency managers, as well as the radio and TV personalities who will be doing their part of the broadcast media about what goes on, we can all get on there and talk amongst ourselves. Hey, what's going on here? What's going on there? This is what we're seeing. I'm seeing penny-sized hail, dime-sized hail, quarter-sized hail, and we go on. So we can get on there and get very specific answers to our questions directly from the National Weather Service personnel. The sirens, which are the outdoor warning system, I'd like to emphasize that's outdoor warning system. You will not hear them inside modern homes that are sealed, air conditioner running, furnace running. It's just a matter of how tightly homes are now sealed compared to in old days. So we advocate that everyone have a weather radio, which will wake you up, I guarantee you. They're about $30. They're available at any of the big box stores or any price chopper throughout the metro area. We have 77 sirens in Wyandotte County. 76 of them are standard sirens that you've always seen all the way back from World War I, World War II. And one is a voice-operated siren. It's electronic. It is also able to give verbal announcements. Besides just the siren warning, it can also give a warning that says, please evacuate the area. We have a dangerous situation, because we are exploring those abilities to warn the public. It's out at the Legends area, in the areas that would broadcast to people that are getting into their cars. It's, if you want to look at it, right across from Chili's on State Avenue on the south side of the street. And it gives voice warnings if we so activate it that way, in Spanish and in English. That it is a new technology. It's being used in other places, and we're starting to adopt it here. The caveat to that is it's more expensive, of course, than a regular old siren. So we have to adopt those wisely. The people who do during the daylight and during times when you can see, we send out our Radio Amateur Civil Emergency Services, one of the 2 volunteer groups that works for emergency management. And what they do is there are weather spotters, and they also provide backup communications. Should everything else die, ham radio is the way that people are going to get a hold of each other throughout the metropolitan area. We have ham radio receivers and transmitters at every hospital in the metropolitan area, on top of just our weather spotters going out. At night, we don't send them out as much. When there's a rain-wrapped situation and they can't see anything in the dark, all you're doing is endangering their personal lives if there's something should happen. So we don't send them out when it's dark. It's almost impossible to see a rain-wrapped tornado. We rely upon the radar from the National Weather Service. We'd like to point out that the National Weather Service radar, keep in mind, there's 4 to 7 minutes between sweeps. It's the amount of time it takes the National Weather Service to spin the radar around, send the data off, get the data back, put it on your screen, and analyze it. And last year, there was at least one small town that was totally or 80% destroyed in Kansas in between radar sweeps. So a tornado can form, touch down, and dissipate, and there would be no necessary, depends upon when it hits. So it's something that we do send our weather spotters out, and we rely upon them because sometimes they will see things happening before the radar system reports it. Along with that, as part of it, there's a severe weather seminar which we held on Tuesday, March 18th at the Kansas City, Kansas Community College, put on by the National Weather Service. Andy Bailey is they call him a warning coordination meteorologist. What it means is he really talks to the public very well. He puts on a very, very good display of what should be worried about, what shouldn't be worried about, what's a scary looking cloud, and what is something to take, warning of. We had this on March 18th. We have this every year. Our weather spotters are required to attend in order to maintain their status as a weather spotter and work with us. This Saturday, they are also, most of them, attending a severe weather symposium in Lawrence. It is put on by the Douglas County Emergency Management Office, and our Emergency Management Office is part of that. We fund the brochures and such that you see. So our weather spotters and our CERT group, which I'll talk about in a second, can attend for free. It's kind of a Weather 102. It really gets into the specifics of things, gets much deeper into the science and the technology of it. And it is not mandatory, but those weather spotters who go to number 1 generally attend number 2, on top of which they are licensed ham radio operators, amateur radio operators, as is everyone in our emergency management office except our secretary. That was her choice. And the other group that works for emergency management is the CERT group. It's the Community Emergency Response Team. This, again, is a group of volunteers who come down and help out. Had I called on them that night, they would have shown up, some portion of them, because they work during the day just like everyone else. And they would come down, they man the weather radar, they man some of the radio equipment, they man some of the WebEOC, which is a communication system. What they call it, it's a documentation system, let's call it that. They use a permanent record. So this CERT, which some of you are aware more than others, and what we talk about in CERT is it teaches people how to react in a disaster. People are going to get involved. People are going to help. How do we help people not get hurt and know their limits of what they can do safely to help out? We show them how to turn off the gas to a house, how to look at a house and say, well, this looks okay, it's lightly damaged. No, this looks too bad, this is heavily damaged. The idea of CERT is if no one else is available, they will go out and work in a situation. They do not replace first responders, but you only have so many resources. And the RACES team, as I was talking about, the radio amateurs, during the 2003 tornado, as soon as the tornado was over, it was a nice, bright, sunny day. It was beautiful outside. And you had houses ripped up and gas lines leaking gas up into the air. They were out turning off gas lines in order to secure the sites. So we teach these units in CERT. It's free, it's open, and we have this available. Outside of the weather and the other things we do, we have several. We activate for every major event, whether it's NASCAR or the Major League Soccer, the T-Bones. The Scouts are having a small party of 10,000 of their friends out there in a few weeks, right after the NASCAR race. So we'll be activated then, and we'll be watching to see what we can do to help. We have the public education thing, as you said, CERT. We also are involved in hazardous chemicals. The local emergency planning committee, which is required by the state for every county to have, We meet as a group in Kansas City, Missouri, for the Mid-America Regional Council. All 9 counties meet at one time, so the representatives from these companies only have to attend one meeting instead of trying to attend every month a meeting from every county within the area that they have any involvement with. The flood warning system and the floodplain system, we work with the planning department. We're involved with that. The dam safety reports, we are involved with making sure that anything that happens, they have to be inspected regularly. We work with Public Works and Engineering. Wyandotte County Lake is a particular area that's really fairly safe because if it goes, there's nothing behind it but cropland. So it's not a high danger area, as are some others though, where if they go, there are personnel behind it. Oh, that in Turner, you might have the lake giveaway over there. It's inspected, the dam has to be maintained to certain standards, and the state inspects them and requires that they're kept up. Public Works and Engineering do most of that work and fix it. Maintain and upgrade our equipment to have the mobile command vehicle, and we have communications trailers, which are again also manned by the radio amateur group. They provide backup communications. We have generators that tow around on lights. We have radios. We work with fleet services to keep all of that going. Just one last slide here. We maintain a storm-ready certification with the National Weather Service, which means we meet certain standards. Our backup communications, the ham radio operators, last June we had an exercise, and one of the things that they were practicing was could they get information from one emergency management center to another one faster than we could talk to each other over our normal communication methods. They were taking great delight to make sure that they were showing that they got there first. The notification system called Everbridge, which is the one that you as commissioners receive your notifications from us when something happens. The Crisis Information Management System, which is WebEOC, it's an event information management system. We do some grant administration. Much of the equipment that's bought through these grants and dispersed throughout the metropolitan area on the Kansas side is done by people in our office who are maintaining and controlling, making sure that we meet all the required standards and that we're meeting all the demands that are necessary to buy this stuff. We have a port security function. A lot of people in Kansas City didn't know there was a port in the first place, but there is. Anything that touches the water and the lakes, the rivers, is automatically under the U.S. Coast Guard. So there are grants that help cover and protect the maritime, what do we call them, resources. For example, the water intakes along the Missouri River. Kansas City, Kansas is a bit less susceptible than Kansas City, Missouri because they have surface water intakes. Our intakes are underground, so we're in better shape. And the difference between the surface water and the quality of the water underground are tremendous. Oil and everything floats on top of that water. So they have to deal with different issues than we do. But also, along that line, getting the boats that the fire department uses to navigate up and down the river to rescue people, those came under that, the port security grant, as well as the communications trailers, some tow vehicles, and we're installing cameras up and down there so that they can be monitored even down in our office down at the Emergency Operations Center. The Regional Homeland Security Coordination Committee is a committee that existed before 2001. It existed before 9/11, and its function was to how can we take and cooperate across this area and work together so that we have common resources and common training methods. Today in a class down in our office on emergency operations, there were probably at least half of the people were from Missouri. Lake Winnebago, Kansas City, Missouri, Johnson County, some from Leavenworth, some from other places. The fire chief from Independence was there, as well as several of her staff. So we have a class, we offer it, it's paid for by grant funds, and it's opened up to the metro area. We have a tremendous reputation across the United States for working together as a metropolitan region. Ours is an example, and it's quite frequently cited as an example that other people should follow. Even though there are differences across counties and across state lines and different laws, they function very well. And that's all I have. Yeah, is there any questions or any comments?
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Boffman? I do want to say one of the things that came out of 9/11, out of the tragedy of 9/11, was there were a lot of resources put together for emergency training and emergency management, and our region were significant beneficiaries of those funds. A lot of those funds are not being renewed. We have an incredible infrastructure that we've built, a cooperative infrastructure, and we do need to be aware that the federal government is cutting back on some of that emergency management funding that came out of 9/11. But it has helped us to, even though the relationships were in place prior to that, really to augment those services. The investment we just made in our new radio system, which is a $25 million investment, allows our community, the last one online, to share a common radio system with emergency responders in the rest of our region, which is critically important in the time of an incident. So in the event that a tornado hits somewhere in the metropolitan area again, all the first responders, all the utility companies, all of the emergency management personnel can be talking together and coordinating their response. That's a huge asset for our community. And though we keep them in the basement, though I think that's your choice, is to be in a safe place underground.
We did offer to switch with the commission. If you'd like the basement for security, we'd take the 9th floor so we could watch for tornadoes.
Well, that is a general offer, and I will take that under consideration.
Under consideration. I understand.
One question I do have is the we've heard a lot in the news about the transfer of oil on rail cars. We have the second largest rail yard in the United States. The increase in oil production in this country, which is a positive in many ways, also is a higher risk. A lot of the oil that's being transferred has a higher natural gas content, is more explosive. I've heard the mayor of Chicago issue warnings. Chicago is the largest rail yard. We are the second largest in Kansas. Many people don't know Kansas City, Kansas is the second largest. We have a major footprint. While some of the rail yard is in Kansas City, Missouri, the majority of it is here in Kansas City, Kansas. What steps are being taken nationally and by our emergency response to make sure that the cars that come through our city each and every day are safe? And what emergency response plans are we putting together to respond to this new threat?
It really falls under the part of our emergency operations plan. It's emergency support function 9, I believe it is, which is hazardous materials and oil. The oil that is coming from the North Dakota area is more volatile, much more explosive, and much easier to set off than older oil deposits that we've seen. There was a national alert. There was warnings about that. The rail yards have a very good reputation, and they have their own containment systems. Although their rails transport this material, the cars are designed and inspected and kept up to date and up to spec. Should they exceed or have anything more than a small spill, they immediately contact the fire department, who has a hazmat team that responds to that. I don't think I've heard of any major issues in our area in quite a while.
Well, I don't think there's been one in our area. I know an entire town in Canada was destroyed by a derailing of one of these, and they exploded and the entire town was leveled. So I just want to make sure that we're taking steps. And I would ask Mr. Boffman if you could to take an extra look into the rail car transfer of oil specifically,
Okay.
and see what is being done. I think that's an issue we need to be out in front on. And I think we, particularly since we host the second largest rail yard, and there are trains going north and south and east and west through us, we need to be on top of that and make sure we're doing our due diligence.
I will.
Mayor, I would add that in the past couple of months, I've had conversations with Chief Jones on that matter from the fire department. It is an issue that we've recently taken extra looks at what's going on with the rail cars moving through our area. So he could probably add to the comments that Mr. Boffman's doing, because it is their emergency response team that comes in from the hazmat unit.
That'd be great. And I'd just like to see a coordinated response with emergency management, the fire department, the rail companies, both Union Pacific and Santa Fe, and Kansas City Southern. All of these groups and the other rail carriers as well are all transporting record amounts of oil by rail. And so I just want to make sure we have coordinated response.
Our
And-
local emergency planning committee does meet on that every month, and that the representatives from all those departments are there, and we have discussed that. But yes, I will look further into it.
I appreciate that very much. Commissioner Philbrook.
First, I have a comment to make. Yes, you did offer us the basement, but we told you we'd come visit you, so don't feel left out. My question for you is how often do you guys have an emergency test, where you practice speaking together, all these different communities, now that we have these wonderful new communication devices, like all those the towers that we put up so we can communicate with all the communities around us
Those
that we weren't used to, that we didn't used to have.
The communications equipment, the 7 new radio towers, actually 2 new, and using 4 others that already exist, and also using one from Johnson County to broadcast back into the Bonner and Edwardsville area. Those will be used daily. As soon as we get that tower at 115th and Polford built and start testing it, we've already started, Motorola under contract has started testing all of the other links of microwave, and they will test the fiber links on that system. We hope to go live after coverage testing in the mid of June. So that will be a daily operational item. We're already using all but the one tower at 115th and the 77th Street, which is also new at Leavenworth Road. We're using all of the other towers already. So those will be daily use.
Now last year you had a test, you had a mock tornado that all of the communities participated in. Can you talk about that trial?
In June, we had the purpose of the exercise was to test our ability to talk with all the other emergency operations centers across the metropolitan area and in the MARC region. Not everybody participated, but almost everyone participated. In Kansas, all the counties have emergency management functions under law in Kansas. In Missouri, it's every political subdivision is required to have an emergency management function. So every city, every small town, they all have to have it in the county. It causes a bit more difficulty over there. You have Jackson County, and then you have Independence within Jackson County, and yet they still have to talk with each other and work with each other. We talked and we tested all of that equipment. We simulated the system going down. We simulated our radio going down. We simulated the cell phone system and the phone system going down, which we switched to our ham radio backup. We would have difficulty talking to particular police officers in a situation like that. But outside of that, between major emergency management centers, we would be able to converse.
How frequently do you have those kind of tests? Region-wide?
That one was once. I don't think we'd had one for that for a couple of years. We simulate different emergency functions, different exercises. We're required to hold a certain number of tests or participate in things or trainings every year as part of our certification in emergency management.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right, thank you. Keep up the good work. We appreciate it very much. We're almost done. I do want to recognize Crystal Watson from the Kansas City, Kansas Public School District is here. We appreciate you being here. And also Mary Ann Flunder from the Kansas City, Kansas Community College Board. We appreciate the other elected officials who are here in attendance tonight. We have an item that was carried over from the 5 o'clock, and it's really brief, and I'm not going to belabor it. We do have representatives from Gould Evans. I had heard from a couple of commissioners that they hadn't heard an update recently on the Healthy Campus. So I'm going to give you a very brief update, and it's really in some ways an announcement. So I'll walk through this very quickly. If we can go to the next slide. As most of you know, this is centered around 10th and State at Big 11 Lake. And as I tell people outside of the community, it's clearly the 11 that's big because the lake is not. There's also someone that said, I heard you're going to drain the lake to build this campus. No, the lake is a great asset that we want to keep. But we're looking at a new community center utilizing JFK. We're looking at a grocery store near there, and we're looking at expanded green space. As we worked on this, it was clear in talking to the philanthropic community that there was a need to expand that. And this commission approved unanimously last summer to invest $6 million in the downtown community center that would be run by the Y. If we look at the next slide, as we talked about this, it was clear that we needed more of an implementation plan, that this was a growing vision and we needed to have more involvement. The Healthcare Foundation of Greater Kansas City, the Reach Healthcare Foundation, and LISC, which is a national not-for-profit that invests in urban areas, all offered money for this implementation plan. So this implementation plan is privately funded. It's about a $70,000 plan. We actually raised over $100,000 to fund it. So we're in good shape in terms of that. So no UG money was used for that. But this plan, we did an RFP and took it out for proposal, request for proposals, and we chose through a competitive process a lead consultant of Gould Evan Architects. Just as a disclaimer, I was not involved in either the issuing of the RFP or the selection of the final firm that would do the RFP. We have staff who handle that and do an excellent job. And we're very pleased with the success. In fact, 3 of the principals for Gould Evans who are working on this are here: Jim Schrader, Dennis Strait, and Graham Smith. We appreciate you all being in attendance and your patience as we held over your item. There's always a sigh that goes out in the audience when someone's item is held over for a longer discussion, but I know you wanted to be a part of the emergency management discussion, and I didn't want you to miss that for this campus. They're going to be beginning a 4 to 5 month process because the thing I've said very clearly is we want to get the input from the community before a shovel of dirt is turned, and we need to make sure there's a comprehensive public engagement on this. We need the neighborhood groups, particularly St. Peter's Waterway, Douglas Sumner, Strugglers Hill, Turtle Hill. All of these neighborhoods around downtown, the downtown shareholders need to be engaged in this conversation. And frankly, these conversations are going to be open to the public. So if there's any interested citizen in Wyandotte County who wants to be a part of that, we encourage everyone to be engaged. There's the comprehensive implementation plan for development in and around the campus is very important. We need to make sure that, I think there needs to be a housing component to this as well. We don't currently have a housing component in what we're looking at. The expansion of green space, if you'll go back to the previous slide on the map, if you can see down below, Waterway Park and Big 11 Lake used to be a part of a continuous park in the city in the 1920s. That's why it's called Waterway Park, though there's no evidence of water there. It was all used to be water, and it crossed Minnesota and State Avenue. That park was closed in 1929. Apparently there was a Great Depression or something, and the city ran out of money. And so much of it was filled in and sold for development, and Big 11 Lake is all that remains of that water park. You can also see going up to Sumner Academy, there is a great deal of a number of trees, and that's in large part because many of the houses in that area are either, they're either missing, they've been demolished, or they are in the land bank or tax delinquent. So we're looking at, is there a way to expand green space, and how can we get the community involved? I'm pleased to say that we're talking actively with School District 500 in terms of how the school district might be involved. There's been no commitment made at this point, simply a discussion about how the school district might be involved. We've talked to the School for the Blind, and we're talking to the Housing Authority, the DIAS. One of the things that was clear, the school district currently isn't able to host swim meets because they don't have a tournament pool. And they send, Sumner and Washington have a combined swim team that meets at Washington. The Ward swim team that's been to state, I think 8 years in a row, goes out to the Savior Pastoral Center at 131st and Parallel to swim. And so there's a lot of communities that, yes, I would like to repeat that for Commissioner Kane, the Bishop Ward swim team goes to state on a regular basis. They go out to 131st to swim. It would be great to have a partnership with them both school districts to be able to build the caliber of swim facility for our teams that we don't currently have anywhere in the county. But one of the things that has been raised is the second leading cause of death among urban children is drowning. And that's largely because of the lack of pool facilities and the lack of access to learning how to swim. And Dr. Lane asked this question. She said, I certainly support our swim team, but what about teaching every child how to swim? And raising that level of vision to make sure that every child in Wyandotte County has the opportunity as part of the curriculum in the schools to learn how to swim is a great opportunity for our community. So we're looking at that as a possibility as well. So there's a great deal of excitement around it. I think Gould Evans is going to be able to take all of this vision and all the input from the community and condense it into a single implementation plan that can then be a plan that we work from as we continue to build this out. Simultaneous to that, obviously, the fundraising work for the community center is ongoing, and the development for the downtown grocery store is ongoing. There's certainly one of the things we are waiting on for both of those is we don't want to break ground until we've seen the implementation plan to make sure we have everything sited in the right place and that we're leveraging the transit center on Minnesota Avenue. One of the great parts about this site is our major transit investment on the Tiger Grant is on Minnesota that goes right past this site. Also, our Trails Master Plan for riding your bicycle is on 10th Street, and that 10th Street will serve as the main path. And interesting, this is where the synergy is coming. That bike path was sited independently of this campus. This was in process, and it just makes sense. This trail will go all the way from Argentine across the Kansas River, all the way up to through Fairfax, to the point of the new bridge that KDOT and MoDOT are building together over to Parkville.
I did not know that.
How great is that? So we're
did not
going to
know
have
that.
a
That's
bike
great
path that
information.
bisects our entire community north-south. It's going to go right next to this campus as well, and it's going to be one of our first striped bike paths in the entire community. And so hopefully there's more of that to come. So I also want to announce, back to the last slide, on May 8th there's going to be a town hall meeting, and it's going to be a special session at 5:30 here in our commission chamber. It's only going to be an hour and a half. I'm going to do a brief presentation, and we're also going to have Gould Evans do a presentation in terms of how they're going to structure their engagement process so the community can be involved. We'll also ask the members of the Y to share with the community some of the things that they're doing in their new YMCAs. And then there will be technical breakout sessions where different folks can be engaged in that process early on. That won't be the last public meeting, but it's going to be the first and perhaps the largest kickoff. We probably will have another big kickoff when the plan is completed so we can present that plan. But right now we're having that big plan kicked off on May 8th. And I'm very excited about it, and I think it's, so basically you know everything I know in terms of the Healthy Campus. But the response in the philanthropic community has been tremendous already. I trust that will continue, and I think the response that we've had already, there are a lot of other organizations who are knocking on our door who want to be a part of this. I'll give you one example. There's a group recently that came forward and said, we've heard about this Healthy Campus idea. We really want to be a part of it. And we provide funding for projects that take it from a regular development to a LEED certified development. And we would be interested in, if you wanted to make it a model LEED certified, which is a sustainable, high efficiency program, we'd like to contribute to that project. So it's continuing to attract attention, and I think the stronger the implementation plan, the more strength this project will have long term. Because my interest is not simply building a community center, which would be a big win, and not simply building a grocery store, which would be a big win, but we're trying to build a city. And this kind of investment, when we're looking at about a $30 million capital investment in downtown, that will be one of the largest investments in our downtown in generations. And it's a great opportunity for our community to kickstart economic development, housing development, retail development right in our own downtown. Because as I say repeatedly, I believe downtown is everyone's downtown. And this kind of project can be an anchor for our community. So that's my presentation tonight. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to take them. I do see a statement or comment from Commissioner McKiernan.
We just need to make a clarification here. Bishop Ward has actually combined with Piper High School for over 15 years to field a combined swim team. Both my girls are proud alumni of that team. So we have to say congratulations to the administrations of both schools for really thinking outside of the box and putting together a cooperative effort.
So we got Bishop Ward and the 5th District both in the same comment. Thank you, Commissioner McKiernan. Any other questions or comments? Again, I want to thank the Gould Evans Group for being here tonight. That is the last item on our agenda. We do have an executive session upstairs. I will entertain an motion for an executive session for 15 minutes.
15.
Oh, thank you. The purpose is... Thank you. The purpose is 15 minutes for labor negotiations.
So moved.
Second?
It has been moved and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.